Welcome to today's video, and today we are talking about the huge debate online, which is people are saying that they would go to the movies more if theaters went back to the stubs versus the paper receipts. Now, as someone who frequents theaters quite often, yes, it is definitely not appealing to have the paper stubs. I remember when they first did the receipt paper, I was actually really disappointed. I am someone who collects ticket stubs. Been collecting ticket stubs since 2005 when I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I have pretty much every ticket stub I've ever had since 2005 until today. With the exception of a few stubs I think I'm missing, like in that early era. Because 2005, I think I was like, I was 12, and that was the first time my buddy I went to movies by ourselves. We're big kids now type thing. I told the story in the video, but long story short, I had that ticket stub. But I remember going to the theater a couple times between then and when I was like 16 probably, where I don't have those stubs because for whatever reason I wasn't given the stub because my parents had the stub or whatever. But there's a couple films I remember seeing in theaters they don't have stubs for. But pretty much, I've collected every stuff from 2005 up until present day. I have cups and cups full of the collector cups in 7-Eleven with the stubs and so on and so forth. But the main thing of this video is, the paper tickets do suck, the receipt paper, compared to the stubs. But looking at it from another perspective, people online, and especially on TikTok, saying, I'd go to the movies more if theaters brought back ticket stubs instead of paper receipts, which I'm calling bullshit. If getting a stub is going to make you go to the theaters more because you don't like the paper receipt, why are you even going to the theater to see a movie? Because the entire point is to see movies. Now, yes, I would go... See, I don't know. I would go out of my way to get the stubs, even now, everything, because a big portion of why they went to receipt paper, and I actually did pretty extensive research on this, is a couple fun things, a couple fun facts, is that the theaters themselves are actually the ones who eat the cost of the ticket stubs, that's not included in the price of the movie ticket. You're not paying for that, that's not included in the price. So the fact that they are going to the cheaper receipt paper isn't going to affect your ticket price because that's set for other reasons, and that has everything to do with the box office revenue. That has nothing to do with what the theater makes. The theater eats the cost of the ticket stubs. So that now, especially that a lot of things have went digital, and everybody orders their tickets online and scan the QR code on their phones, and that's how a lot of people use their tickets now. One of the reasons why the theaters did with the stubs is they're saving significantly large amount of money using paper instead of using stubs. Now, because the cost is, I couldn't find an exact dollar amount per ticket. Apparently it's you have to get, it's a whole process to use the ticket stubs, and it's a lot more costly. For what I could tell, they say it goes based on a couple 100-foot rolls. You can get, it costs maybe 2 cents for a receipt paper, but it costs upwards of $1 or something for a stub. I'm going to include a couple of photos that I actually found in the research. I don't recall every dollar amount on top of my head, but it doesn't give you a direct dollar amount per stub versus paper receipt. Now, a lot of places are, that cuts into their margin profits, their gross profit margin. And so from a business aspect, I understand why corporations like AMC have went to receipt paper. If you look at it, if you're, say, on average, you're saving 75 cents per ticket or per receipt, because so I don't recall if they ever did the stub paper for your concession stands, but I remember even when you order your tickets, you'd get the ticket stub, and you also had a couple other things print out when you use the kiosks, when they even used the actual stubs. That was a couple extra pieces of paper like how your reward information and your points, so on and so forth. So I've been an AMC Stubs member since 2011. I remember they always print off those extra stubs you would get. Now I would just throw them away. I only kept the actual movie stub. Same thing with the receipt paper. I throw away, it prints out my ticket on the receipt paper, and then 4 other pieces of paper. I just throw them away and keep my receipt paper that has my ticket on it. So again, if you look at it, say they're going to save 75 cents per print. That's 3 per person. That's roughly $2.25 on average. We'll say $2 for easy math. Say $2 per ticket you're saving on average. And that's a lot of money you're cutting off your bottom line. So from a financial standpoint, yes, I see why they switched to it. Yes, people are upset. Question is it really going to alter people's movie-going experience and alter if people come to the movies? I've seen some TikTokers talking about, or some content creators saying how they pay more money to have it on an actual stub. Because yes, the receipt paper, it does tend to fade. It doesn't hold up as well as the ticket stubs. But realistically, are you going to pay $3 more to get it on a stub versus a receipt paper? So your $14 ticket went to $17, your $18 ticket went to $21, and then your $24 Dolby went up to $27. That's a huge price hike. And theaters already experienced people having issues coming to the theater because of the expense. And that's a thing that people complain about excessively, is saying, it's not feasible, or if it's not financially feasible to go to the movies anymore. People are saying, it costs $100 for me, my significant other, and 2 kids to go to the movies. And, it used to only cost $40. Because the one guy I see on TikTok, he was talking about, and he used to work in the theater, you could take, him, his wife, and his kids go, it cost me $40. Or a family of 4 could do for about $40. Now it's upwards of $100, time your concessions and your tickets and everything else. Well, that increase would burden the business more, because then they have to somehow tack that extra money onto concessions, because you can't do ticket sales, because again, ticket sales go all to the box office, which goes right back to the studios. The theaters don't make money off the tickets. The stubs come out of their budget in their supplies, which again affects their P&L. So I don't see them ever going back to using stubs, just because it's cost efficient to use a receipt paper. And you're talking, actually, let me do some math. Okay, so I did some math, and based on ticket sales in 2024, divided by 52, which is 52 weeks, divided by 7, gave me roughly 838 tickets. Okay, it's divided by 7, then also divided by 2,500, which is the approximate amount of theaters, they say, in the United. Well, I'm going to say 2,500. There might be more than 2,500 theaters, but generally they say 225 screens, or 2,500 screens is what they kind of use for base on how many screens a film is released across when it has its opening weekend. So that's the number I use for that. And I got roughly 838 tickets per day, so which does seem kind of high, but again, that can fluctuate day to day, theater to theater, depending upon where you're located. We're just using 838 tickets per day as a base for this math. So again, this is not perfect math. Again, there's only so much, because AMC does not release ticket sales daily. There's no information that has concrete, you can't access. There's no public access to their P&L, and their ticket sales per day are broken down by location. None of that's public information. So unfortunately, have to kind of ballpark it. So out of 838 tickets sold per day on average, times $2 was the average cost. It costs more to produce a stub over a ticket, a receipt paper. You're talking $1,676 per day per theater in loss revenue just to put it back on stubs. Now, if we multiply that by 7, that's $11,732 a week in lost revenue. Now, average that out by 52 weeks in a year, that is $610,000. Over $500,000 in lost revenue just based on tickets. Just from going from stubs to receipt paper. You're saving over $500,000 on your bottom line. That's a lot of money. Now, let's see how many theaters AMC has in America. So AMC has approximately 660 theaters in America. Now we're going to times that by 660. That is $402,642,240 in lost revenue across AMC as a company. They're losing over $402 million in lost revenue by using stubs over receipt paper. That is a huge amount of money to be losing. And even if we cut that in half and say it's only $1 more per stub, per ticket from stub to receipt paper, that's still over $200 million in lost revenue. That is a huge chunk of money. That is the difference between staying afloat and not being able to. I mean, let's just look at it from a purely business aspect. 200 will go on the light end of $201,321,000. Imagine all the AMC remodels are doing, how they're revamping a lot of their theaters. They're bringing in Dolby. They're bringing in IMAX. They're redoing the reclining seats. I know the one AMC I go to, they pretty much demolished the entire. They ripped out every theater while staying open. They just did a theater at a time, shutting down like 1 or 2 screens at a time to completely to gut and redo the entire theater. All these theaters that are getting upkeep and getting new screens, new projectors, all that these upkeeps that they're doing all comes from revenue profits. And just by switching from stubs to receipt paper, that's how they're maintaining and pushing forward with all their remodels and things of that nature. Now, that's not what people want to hear. So looking at it from a purely business perspective, I don't see any theater going back to the stubs. I only see theaters continuing to go to receipt paper just because of how much money they're saving in revenue year to date. Now, again, that number is a ballpark number based upon average ticket sales and breaking it down by theaters or screens. And again, that's just a ballpark number, but it could be less. It probably is less. But even if you look at it that way, with how many tickets sold versus average cost, that's a lot of money to lose in revenue to simply make stubs again. Now, as much as I would like to see that happen, I don't foresee that happening. And again, you can tell theaters are hurting as well. The box office failing or showing a decrease in people also hurt the theaters, because theaters don't make money off box office. They make it off concessions. And with less people going to the theater, that means less money in concessions. Overhead costs are still the same, and yet you're losing profits in revenue. I think that's why they've really pushed the popcorn buckets, which I think is a damn joke. Personally, I think it's just got way out of control with these $80 buckets, and theaters are kind of just grasping at straws, trying to pad the bottom line, or not pad, but to give a cushion to their P&L to help the company growth, because they're losing so much money, and they have been since the pandemic. Ticket sales since post-pandemic have increased year over year, but we've still yet to hit the average that it was pre-COVID. So we're still not where we were before COVID. And with that being said, costs have only increased. Increases in inflation have affected corporations just as much as anybody else. Now, again, so with that being said, I don't see them going back to the paper. Going back to stubs. A lot of people are upset. And again, the question bears, are you not going to go to the movies because now you get a receipt paper versus a stub? Like I said, I love the stubs. I think it's really cool. But to say I'm not going to go to the movies anymore because it's on receipt paper, then why are you going to the movies at all anyway? The whole point of going to the movies is to experience the film, not necessarily to get a stub. I mean, I keep them as souvenirs. Apparently, according to Google and my research, not a lot of people do. I mean, I know some people do. I've seen people on who talk about it, so obviously people do. But is it as big of a deal to really cough up that extra dough to cut into your profits to try to bring back the stubs? That is the question of the day. Is it really that big of a deal to you that you get paper receipts over stubs? Would you be willing to pay more to get a stub? Up to $2 to $3 more per film to have a stub versus a paper receipt. What are your thoughts? Comment below. Let me know.